There's a version of you that exists beyond the noise, beyond the anger that flares when someone disrespects you, beyond the anxiety that creeps in at 3 a.m., beyond the sadness that shows up uninvited and refuses to leave. That version of you isn't numb, isn't cold, isn't broken. It's just no longer controlled by every wave that crashes against the shore. Most men think emotional mastery means suppression. Lock it down, don't feel, stay hard. But that's not mastery, that's avoidance. And avoidance always catches up with you. It leaks out in ways you don't expect. In the argument you escalate, in the opportunity you sabotage, in the relationship you destroy because you couldn't handle what you were feeling. The Stoics understood something most people never learn. You don't master emotions by killing them. You master them by understanding them, by creating space between what you feel and what you do, by building a mind so clear, so grounded, that emotions become messengers instead of masters. If you're tired of being jerked around by your feelings, if you want to build the kind of stability that doesn't depend on perfect conditions, then what comes next will change how you see yourself. And if you're ready to stop being ruled by what you feel, consider subscribing. For the part of you that knows there's a better way. The emotional prison. Let's be honest about where most men are. Controlled. Not by external circumstances, though that's what they tell themselves. Controlled by their internal reactions to those circumstances. Someone cuts them off in traffic. There goes the next hour replaying it. Someone questions their competence. There goes their peace for the rest of the day. Something doesn't go according to plan. There goes their ability to focus on anything else. They're not living their life. They're reacting to it, bouncing from trigger to trigger like a pinball, completely at the mercy of whatever emotion gets activated next. And the worst part? They think this is normal. They think everyone lives this way, so they never question it. They never step back and ask, do I control my emotions, or do they control me? Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Read that again. The pain isn't in the event, it's in your interpretation of the event. And interpretation is a choice, not always an easy one, but a choice nonetheless. What mastery actually looks like. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you become a robot. It doesn't mean you stop caring, stop feeling, stop being human. It means you stop being a slave to the fluctuations. It means you can feel anger and still speak with clarity. You can feel fear and still move forward. You can feel sadness and still show up for what matters. The emotion is present, but it's not driving. Think of it like this. You're sitting in a car. Emotions are passengers in the back seat. Sometimes they're loud, sometimes they're insistent, sometimes they're screaming directions at you, but you're still the one with your hands on the wheel. You acknowledge what they're saying, you consider it, but you decide where the car goes. That's the difference. Most people let the passengers grab the wheel whenever they get loud enough. The disciplined person listens, nods, and keeps driving toward their destination. Law 1. Name what you feel. You can't master what you don't understand, and you can't understand what you refuse to name. Most people are emotionally illiterate. They feel something stirring inside, and they can't articulate it beyond, I feel bad, or I'm upset. But emotions aren't monolithic. Anger isn't just anger. It might be frustration, resentment, betrayal, or disappointment. Sadness isn't just sadness. It might be grief, loneliness, regret, or exhaustion. The more specific you can be about what you're feeling, the more power you have over it. The power of precision. When you say, I'm angry, your brain treats it like a vague threat. The emotion stays nebulous, shapeless, powerful. But when you say, "I'm feeling disrespected," or "I'm frustrated because my effort wasn't acknowledged," something shifts. You've given the emotion boundaries. You've made it specific. And specific things are easier to work with than vague ones. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." The same applies to emotions. First name what you're feeling, then decide what to do with it. The practice. Start building your emotional vocabulary. When something triggers you, pause. Take 10 seconds. Ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling right now? Is it anger? Or is it shame dressed up as anger? Is it anxiety? Or is it excitement that you're interpreting as threat? Is it sadness? Or is it disappointment that an expectation wasn't met? Write it down if you need to. The act of naming creates distance. It moves you from "I am angry" to "I am experiencing anger." That's a small shift in language, but a massive shift in power. Because the moment you observe the emotion instead of becoming it, you've already started winning. Law 2. Understand the message. Emotions aren't random. They're information. Every feeling you have is trying to tell you something. The question is, are you listening? Most people ignore the message and just react to the feeling. They feel anxious, so they avoid. They feel angry, so they lash out. They feel sad, so they numb. But they never ask, what is this emotion trying to protect me from? What need is it pointing to? Emotions as messengers. Anger often signals a boundary violation. Someone crossed a line, disrespected you, or threatened something you value. The emotion itself isn't the problem. It's highlighting where you need to take action. Fear signals potential danger or uncertainty. It's your nervous system trying to keep you safe. Sometimes the danger is real, sometimes it's imagined. But the emotion is doing its job, alerting you to pay attention. Sadness signals loss or unmet expectations. Something you valued is gone, or something you hoped for didn't happen. The emotion is asking you to grieve, to process, to let go. Seneca wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." When you understand what your emotions are pointing to, you can address the actual issue instead of just flailing at the feeling. The practice. Next time you feel something intense, don't immediately try to fix it or suppress it. Ask, what is this emotion protecting me from? What boundary was crossed? What expectation wasn't met? What need isn't being addressed? Sometimes the answer is clear. Sometimes it takes reflection. But the act of asking shifts you from victim to investigator. You're no longer being controlled by the emotion. You're learning from it. And once you understand the message, you can respond strategically instead of reactively. Law 3. Create space before response. This is where most people lose, not in the feeling itself, but in the gap between feeling and action. The emotion rises, and immediately, without pause, without thought, they react. They send the angry text. They make the cutting remark. They slam the door. They spiral into the worst-case scenario. And then they spend the next hours or days cleaning up the mess their reaction created. The Stoics called this the discipline of assent. It's the practice of not immediately agreeing with your first impulse. The sacred pause. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That power lives in the pause, in the space between stimulus and response, in the breath you take before you speak, in the 10 seconds you give yourself before you act. This isn't about suppression. It's about sovereignty. It's about reclaiming the driver's seat. When someone insults you, the emotion will rise. That's automatic. But what you do next, that's a choice. You can lash out immediately, or you can pause. Breathe. Observe the anger. Name it. Understand what it's protecting, and then choose your response. Most of the time, after that pause, you realize the immediate reaction would have made things worse. The pause gives you options. It gives you clarity. It gives you control. The practice. Build the pause habit. Start small. When you feel triggered, take 3 deep breaths before responding. Count to 10 in your head. Step outside for 60 seconds. Write the angry message, but don't send it. Save it as a draft and come back to it in an hour. The specific method doesn't matter. What matters is creating distance between the trigger and your action. That distance is where your power lives. And over time, that pause becomes automatic. You stop reacting from the first wave of emotion. You start responding from a place of clarity. Law 4. Detach from outcomes. You feel what you feel because you're attached to how things should go, to how people should behave, to how life should unfold. And when reality doesn't match your script, you suffer. This is the attachment trap, and it's where most emotional chaos is born. The illusion of control. You're angry because someone didn't meet your expectations. You're anxious because you can't control the outcome. You're disappointed because things didn't go according to plan. But here's the brutal truth. You never controlled those things in the first place. You controlled your effort, your preparation, your response. But the outcome? That was always beyond you. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." When you detach from needing things to go a certain way, your emotional state stops being hostage to circumstances. You can care deeply about the work without being destroyed by the result. You can hope for the best without requiring it for your peace. Before any situation that matters, ask yourself, what's in my control here? Your effort? Yes. Your attitude? Yes. Your preparation? Yes. Your integrity? Yes. The outcome? No. How others respond? No. Whether life is fair? No. Focus your emotional investment on what you can control. Let the rest unfold. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're not setting yourself up for unnecessary suffering by demanding guarantees the universe never promised. Law 5. Reframe the narrative. Your emotions aren't triggered by events. They're triggered by your interpretation of events. 2 people experience the same situation and have completely different emotional responses. Why? Because they're telling themselves different stories about what it means. Someone doesn't text you back. One person thinks, they're busy, they'll respond when they can. They feel neutral. Another person thinks, they're ignoring me, I did something wrong, they don't value me. They feel anxious, rejected, angry. Same event, different story, different emotion. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Most of your emotional suffering comes from the story you're telling yourself about what's happening. And the story you tell is a choice. When you feel a negative emotion, pause and identify the story. Ask, what am I telling myself about this situation? Is this story definitely true, or is it one interpretation? What's another way to look at this? Maybe they're not ignoring you, they're overwhelmed. Maybe the criticism isn't an attack, it's feedback pointing to a blind spot. Maybe the rejection isn't about your worth, it's about fit. You're not being delusional, you're being flexible. You're refusing to let your first interpretation be your only interpretation. And that flexibility, it's emotional freedom. Law 6. Build emotional endurance. Emotions are like muscles. The more you work them, the stronger they get. The more you avoid them, the weaker you become. Most people have no emotional endurance because they've spent their whole lives avoiding discomfort. The moment something feels bad, they reach for a distraction. Scroll, drink, numb. Anything to not feel what they're feeling. But avoidance doesn't make emotions go away. It just delays them. And when they finally surface, they're worse. #training in discomfort. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort. They fasted. They slept on hard floors. They exposed themselves to cold. Not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they knew comfort makes you fragile. The same applies emotionally. If you only allow yourself to feel good emotions, you become brittle. The moment something bad happens, you shatter. But if you practice sitting with discomfort, with anxiety, with sadness, with frustration, you build tolerance. You learn that emotions can't actually hurt you. They're uncomfortable, yes, but they're not dangerous. The practice. Stop running from uncomfortable emotions. Next time you feel anxious, sad, or frustrated, don't immediately distract yourself. Sit with it, just for 5 minutes. Notice where you feel it in your body. Notice the thoughts that come with it. Notice how it changes and shifts. Notice that it doesn't actually destroy you. This is how you build emotional resilience. Not by avoiding the hard feelings, but by learning you can survive them. And once you know you can survive them, they lose their power to control you. Law 7. Return to your values. Here's the ultimate filter for emotional mastery. Does this feeling align with who I'm trying to become? You can feel whatever you feel, but you don't have to act on it. And the deciding factor shouldn't be the intensity of the emotion. It should be your values, the North Star. When you're clear on your values, on what kind of person you're building, on what matters most to you, emotions become easier to navigate. You don't ask, what do I feel like doing? You ask, what would the person I'm becoming do in this situation? Maybe you feel like snapping at someone who disrespected you, but if your value is self-control, you don't. You respond with composure. Maybe you feel like giving up on something that's hard, but if your value is persistence, you don't. You push through. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." Your values are your anchor. They keep you steady when emotions try to pull you off course. The practice. Write down your 3 core values, not aspirations, not what sounds good, the actual principles you want to define your character. Maybe it's integrity, maybe it's courage, maybe it's discipline, maybe it's compassion. Then, when you feel a strong emotion, ask, if I act on this feeling, will I be living in alignment with my values? If yes, act. If no, pause. Let the emotion pass. Choose the response that honors who you're becoming. Because in the end, mastery isn't about never feeling. It's about never being ruled by what you feel. Emotional mastery is a practice, not a destination. You don't reach a point where emotions stop affecting you. You reach a point where they stop controlling you. You feel the anger, but you speak with clarity. You feel the fear, but you move forward anyway. You feel the sadness, but you don't let it steal your purpose. The Stoics weren't superhuman. They were disciplined. They built systems, practices, daily rituals that reminded them, I am not my emotions. I am the one who observes them, who understands them, who chooses what to do with them. And that's the shift available to you. Not someday, today. Every time you name what you feel instead of drowning in it. Every time you understand the message instead of just reacting to the feeling. Every time you create space before you respond. Every time you detach from outcomes you can't control. Every time you reframe the narrative. Every time you sit with discomfort instead of running. Every time you choose your values over your impulses. You're building something. A mind that doesn't bend every time the wind blows. A character that doesn't crumble under pressure. A presence that others feel. Steady, grounded, unshakable. Not because nothing affects you, but because you've learned to hold the line between what you feel and what you do. That's power. Quiet power. Earned power. The kind that lasts. So here's the question to carry forward. Which emotion has been running your life? And what would change if you took back control? Not to judge yourself, just to see clearly. Because awareness is always the first step. The quiet work you do today, learning to observe instead of react, to understand instead of suppress, to choose instead of be chosen. That's the work that transforms everything. Stay focused, stay grounded, and remember, you don't master your emotions by killing them. You master them by becoming someone they can't control.